I've imported a file just like that, and the file is that same image. So I'm going to open up that image on my source monitor, and here it is, the one you just saw on my desktop a moment ago. The first thing that I want to do is make sure that image is on the timeline. So I'm dragging it down here. I'm going to open up my timeline to about 16 seconds. I think that's how much I need. So first I'm going to expand my timeline so I get an idea of how much 16 seconds is. Just a little bit less than that. Here we go. That's 16 seconds. Okay. Now what do we do? Well, you've learned that there are certain effects that we can use within Premiere Pro. And we are going to pull out all the stops for this. We're first going to click on, right here near the source monitor, Effect Controls. And the effect controls that we will need to do what we want to do here relate to motion. We're going to use positioning, scaling, and rotation to create the effects that I just showed you in the Ken Burns video. The first thing is we need to think about keyframes, and keyframes tell us when to change the actions that we want to happen on screen. So I'm going to put down a few keyframes that will happen over the 16 seconds of video that I have. First I'm going to click in the position because that's the first one I'm going to do. So I put a position one in, and I'm also going to put in one for scale. Alright, so we have two keyframes I've just put in. Now I can position things right here, as you can see, by going left or right, or by just simply clicking in and putting in a position that I want. And I can do the same with scale. I can scale down to 50% of this by clicking in and writing 50, as you can see. That takes us out. I can go back to 100%. But what I've found is easy is to actually do some of these things right here in the program monitor. So I'm going to go back to my 100%. Okay, that's where I was. I'm going to start moving things around in the program monitor. Now watch as I get the first shot that I want. I'm going to grab this just right here. Remember, my picture is much bigger than this screen shows, so I can get a pretty decent shot, but I don't want her in it. That's about what I want. So I might even make that a little bit bigger, like that. I scaled it up another 20%. That's where I want to start for my position and my scaling. And now I'm going to go in a few seconds, and I'm going to add another position, and I'm going to add another scale. These are my keyframes. That means between that previous keyframe and this keyframe, a particular action will occur. And what do I want to happen here? Well, I think I want to, and I'm going to move around in my program monitor, I want to see the face. Right here. This is Mekta. But I think I'm going to have to go down in my scale a little bit to see more. There we go. See, and that keyframe hasn't changed. So let's see what that looks like. Go back to the beginning, press your space bar, or press the play key to toggle it, and you'll see those are the two keyframes we've put in. Now the movement looks a little bit staccato, but that's because we haven't rendered those frames yet. So I'm going to go a little farther, and I'm going to add another couple of keyframes. And so I'm going to click right here to add one, and I'm going to do the same for the scale. Now what do I want to do? Well, I want to bring this down closer to where that camera is. And I'm going to now click a keyframe there for position and another one for scale. Now I'm going to move it right to where those crayons are. These little dots that you see here, these are my motion paths. These are the paths that I'm creating. I'm just showing you, I just went down to 10%. I'll go up to 25%. You can see the kinds of motions that we are creating here. Now I'm bringing it back to fit all on screen. From here, I'm going to add one more keyframe right at the end, because by the time I reach 16 seconds, I want to be back out to a nice shot that shows my subject with the light as I had in the beginning. So what do? I position my indicator, current time indicator, to about the 16-second mark, click in position, which gives me another keyframe, click in scale, which gives me another keyframe. Now I'm going to bring this down to more that I can see, and I'm going to have to scale way back, and then I'm going to position up, keep scaling a little bit back. You know, I could also just scale back by clicking in there if I want to. I think I'll just click in there about 60. So let's see what that does. I like that shot for a nice closing shot. So that's my position and that's my scaling. Let's look at what we have so far. And you tell me if I'm missing something. Okay, it's moving. I haven't rendered just. Then it goes down like I want it to the camera. We go over to the Elmer's glue and down to the crayon box. Finally, back out to the first position. I also had something else going, and that's called rotation. And it right here is the rotation button. So I'm going to click here, so I have my first rotation keyframe here. The first time I want to be pretty straight up, like we are right now. But by the time I get, say, to here, I think I'm going to add a rotation keyframe by clicking on the keyframe next to rotation. And at this point in time, I want to just have a slight rotation, maybe about 6 or 7 degrees, like that. And then when I get to about here, I want that rotation to be about 12 degrees. So I'm just going to rotate it just that much. And when I finally reach the end, I want the rotation to be back to about 0. Now, you notice I didn't rotate 25% or 30%. The movement would have seemed fairly aggressive or sharp, and what I wanted to go for was more of a subtle movement. Let's see if we achieve that. You see how it's starting to just angle a little bit? Now it's going down, but it's starting to right itself back up as we get into this position. Now, the next thing we'd want to do is render the effects in the work area. But since that's going to take so long, I'm just going to go back to where I already have one that I rendered, so you can see it once more, all rendered and smooth. Here we go. Down to the camera, a little more in on the camera, movement to the glue, down, and as you can see, I'm starting to write it up as we come to the conclusion. And that's your Ken Burns effect.